Hi, I'm Cascade and I'm working my way up the Board Game Geek charts with 300 board games that I've played, my thoughts and experiences. Today we're looking at Poleconomy, currently ranked just below 21,000 with an average user score of 5.4. My rating is 2 out of 10. So, Poleconomy sounds a little bit like Monopoly, rated significantly higher than Monopoly, but significantly worse as a game. A lot of things in common. You roll 2 dice, you move around the board, you buy companies. If you land on someone else's property, you pay rent. If they land on yours, you get rent from them. If you land on your own property, you get rent from the bank. That's a little bit different. If you roll double sixes, you go bankrupt, except you can keep your life insurance's policy. Or if you've got business insurance, then you can cancel that. So you'd probably better get some of those. There's a little dealy-do in the middle of the board that tracks inflation, and everything's in hundreds of thousands. So your rent's always going to be some multiple of 100,000, and your cost to buy shares is going to be some multiple of 100,000, depending on your inflation rate. When we played this when I was about 11 years old, and we just pushed the inflation rate all the way up, and we made heaps of money, and we ran out of dollary-doos in the bank. So that was interesting. When I first moved to Queensland, I met these boys, Zenith and Tyson. They were part of our church, and I hadn't really sort of decided who my friends were going to be yet. They were kind of a bit odd, and their father was a mortician, so you could kind of imagine that they're maybe not walking by the same beat of the drum as everybody else. They had this sitting up on a shelf, and I'm like, hey, that looks cool. Can we play that? Oh, we don't really know how to play that. Oh, that's not really fun or whatever. And I sat down and I read the rules, and I played it with the two brothers. I had roast duck for dinner one of those Sunday afternoons, and that's the only time I've ever eaten duck in my life. The thing that set Poleconomy apart was that it had real companies on the board, and each country, well, not every country, but different country versions had different companies that represent companies in their country. So looking around this board, I can see companies from the late 70s, early 80s, and some of these that had an impact on my life. John Sands is on here. This is the company that actually published this game. As far as I know, in the late 80s, early 90s, John Sands was the only company in Australia that actually printed and published games, often games like this that would have been licensed from other companies. We considered approaching them for an idea we were working on. That's how I know that. They're not around anymore. They were printers and stationists going way back, and then they moved into board games, and so it wasn't unusual to see John Sands games alongside Milton Bradley and other things like that in at your local toy shop. We've got Nylex, who made garden hoses, amongst other things, and we had a Nylex hose at one point in about 1986. The Australian newspaper, which is still around, it's, well, there really is only one big major national newspaper company, and they own pretty much all the major newspapers. I had never heard of the Australian until before I played this board game, and honestly, it's had almost no impact on my life. We had a Vulcan oil heater in our lounge room in Katoomba when I was growing up in Katoomba. That was before I moved to Queensland. And also, while I was in New South Wales, we took a plane trip on TAA, up and away. I was about 9 or 10 years old. While we're still living in New South Wales, we went on a holiday with TAA. They were one of those low-cost, friendly budget airline things back then, and went the way of pretty much all low-cost, friendly budget airlines. They went out of business sometime in the 90s, I think. Monier make roof tiles, and I think probably bricks as well. They actually were based not that far from in between Ipswich and Brisbane. There's an industrial estate, like a big, like heavy and medium to heavy industrial stuff, and they had a base down in there. So that was a local company that I had not heard of, but I thought it was really cool that they had these really cool commercials with cats walking across rooftops with really cool music and really spooky atmosphere. And I thought it was really cool to see them, a company that I'd only just learned about on a board game that I was playing.
Monier, top cat in roof tiles.
Roller doors with the button, you could remote control thing, you could keep in your car and press it and whatever. This is back in the mid-80s. This was a thing, and that seemed pretty cool back then. But I knew someone who actually worked for B&D. She worked at the factory too, probably in that same industrial estate. Spent a lot of money on Kodak products in the early to mid-90s. Used to go through a lot of film, had a really nice little compact Pentax 35mm camera. Used to take a lot of photos with that. ISO 400 film was just starting to really become a thing, and it's really, really nice late in the afternoon to get that extra light capture from a good quality film. This is before people were walking around with cell phones. I used to take a lot of photos Used to get a bag back, used to send them off to this place called National Photos. They used to do them in 5x7s, so bigger than a 6x4, in these pre-bound books, and on this pearl sheen paper, which is really nice compromise between matte and gloss. So really, really nice colours, but not so shiny that you're having to tilt it like this to not get the light on it. And I was going through at least a roll of film a month, probably more, back at a time when it was not cheap to be doing that. This is before we had cell phones and we could just take photos or whatever whenever. OPSM, where I got my first pair of glasses and my first ever eye test in Ipswich, back when I was about 11 years old. Yeah, so basically this game had real life companies on it, and that was a kind of an interesting novelty, but other than that, it's just a knockoff of a Monopoly, and not a particularly good one at that. If you've made it this far through the video, thanks for watching. Please like, share, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Up and away with TAA, the friendly way. Wow, that's bad.